Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources today looking at a deep theological question within the Abrahamic faiths.
Right. It's about the miracle of resurrection.
Exactly. Why do some sources mention prophets like Isa, Jesus and Abraham having these demonstrations of resurrection?
But not the final prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Yeah. What's going on there?
Well, it really pushes us to think about what miracles are for. It's less about the wow factor, maybe, and more about the strategy behind them.
Divine wisdom, al-hikmah, as the sources put it.
Precisely. And it connects directly to this core Islamic idea of iman bil-Ghayb, belief in what you can't see, and how the Quran itself functions as this ultimate ongoing miracle.
So our mission today is to unpack all this, look at how the proofs may be changed depending on the prophet and the people.
And why the Quran, with its intellectual challenge, was the final permanent sign for all humanity. Let's get into it.
Okay, so this idea of custom-tailored miracles. It sounds like each prophet arrived with a sign specifically designed to, counter the biggest thing that community prided itself on.
That's exactly what the sources suggest, yeah. The sign had to be undeniable, something their own best experts couldn't replicate or explain away using their own skills.
Right. So let's say Prophet Moses, sent to Pharaoh, Egypt, a place all about power and known for its sophisticated magic.
Oh, so the court magicians were top tier. So his big signs, the staff becoming a huge serpent, his hand shining white.
Quran mentions these, chapter 20.
Yes. It wasn't just impressive, it was a direct challenge to their specific expertise. The sources emphasized that the magicians themselves knew immediately. They recognized it.
Ah, okay. They saw it wasn't just a clever trick.
No, this was something beyond human ability, beyond their art.
Okay, then shift to Prophet Isa, Jesus. Different context. The children of Israel, known for advanced medical knowledge at that time.
That's the understanding, yes.
Yeah.
So if their peak skill was healing, Isa's miracles hit right there.
Healing the blind, the leper.
And even reviving the dead. But always stressing, it was by Allah's permission.
Mentioned in Surah Al-Imran, I think.
That's right, Quran 3.49. These weren't just pushing medical limits. They shattered them, showed a higher power at work in their specific field of excellence.
But Prophet Abraham, his experience with resurrection seems different. It wasn't really a public spectacle, was it?
No, that's a crucial distinction. The story of the birds in Quran chapter 2.
Where he asks to see how Allah gives life to the dead.
Yes, verse 260. It was a personal request. He asked to satisfy his own heart, to deepen his yaqeen, his certainty, which was already immense, mind you.
So not a challenge to his people, but more like a personal divine lesson for him.
Exactly. It confirms his own faith rather than confronting the disbelief of others. That difference is key.
It really is. Okay, so if miracles were tailored, how do you tailor one for Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? His message wasn't just for one people or one time.
Right. It was for everyone, everywhere, until the end of days. So a physical miracle, like Musa's staff or Isa's healing, that's temporary, isn't it?
How so?
Well, people witness it then, but later generations, they only hear about it. It becomes a story, secondhand information.
Ah, I see. You weren't there, you just have reports.
Exactly. The sources argue that the final universal message needed a miracle that was also universal and permanent, something every generation could access directly.
Something testable, maybe, intellectually.
Precisely. It needed to be intellectually rigorous, self-evident, something that transcends language and time.
And that's where the Quran comes in.
That's the argument. The ultimate ijaz, the inimitability. It first came to the Arabs who were, masters of language, poetry, eloquence. That was their highest art form.
So the challenge was aimed right at their strength.
A strategic choice, yes. The Quran's linguistic perfection, its structure, its legal wisdom, its prophecies, it was a direct challenge. Produce something like it if you can.
And the challenge still stands. Quran 2.23, right? Produce even one chapter like it.
And it hasn't been met. The sources call it a living, perpetual miracle. Anyone, anytime can engage with it, study its depths, and frankly, be humbled. It appeals to reason, to the intellect, to the heart, not just the eyes. For a fleeting moment, it's a standing proof.
Okay, that makes sense in terms of universality, but it brings up what you called a paradox earlier. If Prophet Ibrahim, a giant of faith, could ask for and get that visual confirmation with the birds,
To strengthen his certainty, yes.
then why is it seen as, problematic or even arrogant when a skeptic today demands similar physical proof? Like, show me a miracle, then I'll believe. Doesn't that feel like a double standard?
It's a really important question, and the sources are quite clear on the distinction. It boils down to essentially two things: the intention behind the request and the consequences of granting it.
Okay, let's break that down. Intention first. How is Ibrahim's different?
His request came from a place of profound, existing faith and deep humility. It wasn't him testing God. It was an appeal from a place of submission, asking for a deeper level of understanding for that perfect certainty, Yakin. It's part of divine teaching, almost.
A step up in faith, not a demand before starting.
Exactly. Whereas the demands from skeptics, which the Quran mentions in places like Surah Al-Isra,
Verses 90 to 93, things like make springs gush forth or bring down the sky on us.
yes, those kinds of demands, they often come from, well, arrogance or defiance or just finding excuses. Make mountains gold, show us the angels. These aren't usually genuine searches for truth. They're more like setting impossible bars to justify not believing.
So it's less about needing proof and more about setting up a reason to reject.
That's often the underlying motive identified in the sources, which leads to the second point, the consequences. If God just granted empirical proof every time someone demanded it,
Like flipping a switch.
yeah, it would completely undermine the whole point of this life. The sources call this world Dar al-Ibtila, the abode of trial, the place of testing.
How would it undermine it?
Well, if the reality of the hereafter, the angels, heaven, hell was as plain to see as, say, this table, then belief wouldn't be a choice anymore, would it? It would be forced knowledge, compulsory.
Right, there's no moral value in believing something you literally can't deny seeing.
Exactly. The whole concept of faith, of choosing belief based on reason and revelation and that inner inclination,
Yeah.
it would collapse.
Yeah.
Moral agency requires that element of the unseen.
The choice has to be meaningful.
It has to be a choice. And the Quran actually says, even if God did send down angels or made the dead speak as demanded, many who are determined to disbelieve would still reject it.
Surah Al-An'am, verse 111.
Yes. They just call it magic or an illusion because ultimately the sources argue that rejection often stems from the heart, from pride or stubbornness, not from a genuine lack of signs.
Okay, that flows directly into the central concept then. Iman bil-Ghayb, belief in the unseen. Why is that the absolute bedrock, the first quality of the righteous mentioned in the Quran?
It has to be, because al-Ghayb, the unseen, covers everything beyond our direct sensory perception. God himself, angels, the soul, destiny, the afterlife. If faith only applied to things we could scientifically measure or observe empirically.
Then there'd be no need for faith in that sense.
Right. The test is predicated on believing in realities that transcend the physical. Demanding purely physical proof for a metaphysical reality is, as some scholars put it, a category error.
Like using a ruler to measure love or something.
Exactly. It's using the wrong tool for the job. Islamic thought recognizes that knowledge doesn't only come from empirical data.
What are the other valid paths to knowledge then, especially regarding the unseen?
Well, there are three main ones highlighted. First, revelation, wahyi, reliable information from the ultimate trustworthy source, God through his prophets. Second, our innate disposition, fitra, that sort of built-in awareness most people feel deep down of a creator of morality.
A kind of spiritual intuition.
You could say that. And third, crucially, reason, akal.
Okay, how does reason lead us to accept something like the resurrection, which is inherently unseen?
Through logical deduction, really. Reason observes the universe, its order, its justice, its wisdom, and concludes that it's simply ending at the grave, where, a lifelong oppressor and their victim meet the exact same end. That seems irrational. Absurd, even.
It doesn't compute with the idea of a just creator.
Precisely. A just system requires ultimate accountability, which necessitates an afterlife. Plus, reason observes signs of resurrection in nature itself, the dead earth brought back to life with rain, the cycle of seasons.
The Quran points to these kinds of things, right? Like in Surah Yasin.
Yes, verses 78, 79, asking how bones can be revived, and the answer points to the one who created them in the first place. So reason concludes resurrection isn't just possible, it's logically necessary for justice to prevail.
And rejecting the unseen. What's the consequence of that worldview, according to these sources?
It limits you. You essentially confine yourself to a purely materialistic view. The Quran describes people who say, there is nothing but our worldly life, we die and live, and nothing destroys us except time.
Surah Al-Jathiyah, verse 24.
That's the one. This can lead, the sources argue, towards moral nihilism if this is all there is. Why bother with ultimate morality? And ultimately, it means failing the test of this life, leading to loss in the hereafter.
It's useful maybe to quickly touch upon other Abrahamic faiths Does this tension between science and faith exist elsewhere, even where resurrection miracles were performed?
Oh, absolutely. It's not unique to Islam. Take Christianity, for example. The resurrection of Jesus is, of course, absolutely central. It's presented as the ultimate physical proof.
The cornerstone event?
Definitely. But, interestingly, the New Testament also strongly praises faith without seeing.
Ah, the famous story with Thomas, doubting Thomas.
Exactly. When Jesus appears after the resurrection, Thomas needs to physically touch the wounds, and Jesus says, essentially, "You believe because you've seen me." But then he adds, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
John 20.29. So there's still a higher value placed on that conviction that doesn't require the empirical proof.
It clearly affirms that theological value, yes. It echoes that same principle of Iman bil-Ghayb, even within a tradition where a physical resurrection is foundational.
And in Judaism, where the focus is so strongly on the covenant, the law, the Torah.
Well, the idea of resurrection, Tekshiat Hamatum, became a core principle later in Jewish theology. And you do have accounts in the Hebrew Bible of prophets like Elijah and Elisha reviving the dead.
Right, those miracles are there.
They are. But the day-to-day emphasis, the core of religious practice, remains centered on living according to the Torah, the covenant established with God. There wasn't necessarily an expectation of constant spectacular signs in the same way. The primary proof was the enduring covenant and the revealed law itself. Faithful action was key. So when you pull it all together, what's really striking is how this difference in the type of primary miracle seems incredibly strategic. It points towards that divine wisdom, al-Hikmah.
Tailoring the approach again.
Exactly. Ensuring the final universal message didn't rely on a miracle that was amazing but ultimately local and temporary, something people generations later would just hear about.
Instead, it relies on the Quran.
An enduring intellectual spiritual challenge. Something powerful, rational, accessible across time and space. An eternal argument, you could say, rather than a fleeting spectacle.
And this idea of the unseen, the Ghayb, it protects the test itself. If everything was laid bare, empirically proven,
the merit disappears. The value is in the choice, in seeking truth and aligning with it, even when you don't have absolute, undeniable sensory proof of every detail of the hereafter.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Posing this to you, our listener. If you suddenly had undeniable, empirical proof of all the unseen realities, God, angels, afterlife, everything clear as day, what would that actually change for you? What might you gain in certainty, perhaps? But what essential human element, what challenge might you lose? Something to definitely reflect on.